the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Week 37. Truth invites, it never commands. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Free will is a basic principle of life. God never coerces. He invites us to live in such a way that we find fulfillment in ourselves. If we refuse to live rightly, Paramhansa Yogananda taught that God simply says, I will wait. We have eternity to live. In that eternity, we live as we choose, in self-created darkness, a darkness as intense and as long-lasting as we choose, or in the infinite light, the true self, which is God. Jesus Christ in the Beatitudes offered a beautiful example of God's way of inviting mankind to seek perfection, not by commanding, but by offering his human children the incentive they need to choose the right of their own volition. Blessed are the poor in spirit, Jesus said, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. In each of these Beatitudes, Jesus explains the blessing attendant upon observing it. The divine way, similarly, for each of us is not to do violence to our own natures. Spirituality must be attained naturally. It can never be attained by force. The Bhagavad Gita says in the 3rd chapter, even the wise behave in accordance with nature as it is manifested in them. Of what avail, then, is suppression? The scripture then goes on, however, to explain that this doesn't mean we should surrender to the dictates of our lower nature. Rather, it emphasizes our need to aspire to the heights, but each of us in accordance with his own nature and not in imitation of anyone else's, offering ourselves up for purification by divine grace. Desire, whatever form it takes, so the Bhagavad Gita explains, should be resisted, even if only mentally. Quote, attachment and repulsion to sense objects, both of these are universally rooted. No one should accept their influence, for verily they are man's enemies. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
Beautiful reading, followed by another beautiful reading from Whispers from Eternity. This Whispers is, heal my nerves and install in me new ones, resonant with thy joy. When thou camest, I smiled in my soul cottage by the little brook of life. O mystic electrician, the many-tinted bulbs of unawakened happiness long dependent on my nerve-clogged senses, refused to scintillate with light, for the nerve wires had been torn and shaken by high winds of outer involvement. O thou silent physician of illness, heal my tattered nerves, restorer of shining currents in our lives, resurrect all the dead nerve wires, not only in me, but in people everywhere. Breathe into their bodies an unleashed flow of power, that all the unlit, bare wired and dangling bulbs of their senses may suddenly shine again with thy blazing glory. I am the bulb. Thou art the holy energy that can animate it. Thou art indeed both bulb and light. Help all men to realize this miracle. Heal all our shattered nerves and flood all the disease-clogged wires, leading to those bulbs with the effulgence of thy divine light. So we're here to reboot that little bulb that sometimes has lost its effulgence because we become so concerned with the world around us that we abandon that center. And the farther away we go from our center, the duller that bulb becomes. You abide at the center, and that bulb is high-powered again. So these are all reminders, as we heard in the reading, of an invitation. They're not rules, they're not regulations, they're not do this or face the consequences. It's an invitation that you are inclined to receive if you are in a receptive mood. This week was a very special week, for we celebrated Swami Kriyananda's discipleship anniversary. 76 years since he took a bus as a young man from New York to California to ask Yogananda if he could be his disciple. Swami Kriyananda had heard that invitation from truth since he was a child, and he followed it and followed it and followed it, and he was not satisfied until he found a true teaching that spoke to his soul. When we hear the call of that aspiration, of that yearning to become whole again, that is when our path begins. And that path will always lead you to your highest destination in God. We need to hold that receptivity. This is a path that is paved by our moment-to-moment choices. It's not something that you aspire to once or make a big good intention and then forget about it. Moment-to-moment choices. The minutes are more important than the hours, than the days, than the months, than the years in your life. How are you cultivating this moment? Are you open and available to channel more grace, to channel more patience? Are you open to experience the divine in yourself? This is the only way that we can share the divine with others. You have to become that instrument of light. These are invitations that inspire us to move toward our higher self. We're all here because we've heard that invitation. And that invitation will keep knocking on the door of your heart and on your consciousness. If no one's home, it waits. If no one's receptive or interested, it waits. A lifetime, lifetimes, maybe just a little time, and you're back on track. We come to this existence endowed with free will. We get to choose and do anything we wish. And our best root teacher is experience, isn't it? After the experience, we sit with the results of our experience. Did that experience bring you upliftment? Did it sadden you? Did it depress you? Did it nourish you? Are you going back for more of that? And this is how we are paving our path, through our experience. So there's no sense of just holding back and repressing. I'm not going to do that because I shouldn't. Try it. And in the experience, you will know if that was aligned with you or if you're going to refrain from it. The Beatitudes have no rules. They're just statements of grace that invite us to experience a higher state of being. Yogananda never gave specific instructions. He would have his disciples learn by role modeling. He was the example that he wanted his disciples to emulate. He never came to a disciple and said, you did this wrong, or you did. No. He always waited for the right time, for the time that that disciple could receive correction, that disciple could receive a suggestion, could receive some inspiration. But not until the right time are we ready to go beyond that. Jesus offered the Beatitudes in the same fashion. He never said, be a peacemaker. He didn't say you should. He offered these teachings for those who had eyes to hear, eyes to see, and ears to hear. The one beatitude that really inspires me is, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Our evolution, our spiritual evolution, depends on the purification of the heart. This purification starts when we begin to purge and release everything that is not aligned with our spiritual nature. And we all know we carry baggage in the heart. Heart becomes heavy. It becomes burdened. There is a story that Swami Devi once shared about Lord Krishna and his disciple Narada. They were once wandering through the countryside as beggars, and they were hungry and they were tired, so they came to this door and knocked. The door happened to be a very big mansion, the house of a very wealthy merchant. And the merchant opened the door and saw them tattered and tired and beggars, and they asked for some sustenance. But he demanded they leave immediately. He would have nothing to do with such people. And Narada looked over at Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna had a slight smile on his face, totally untouched by the experience. So they kept going and going, and night was falling, and they came upon a tiny little hut. And they knocked on that door, and an old poor farmer opened the door and welcomed them in. He had nothing other than an old cow. He took the milk from the cow and offered his guests all the milk. Narada looked over at Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna looked pensive, as if he was looking out into the distance, but said nothing. The following morning, they had to go through the town to get water. And at the water well, they heard all the villagers talking excitedly. Did you hear about the great windfall, big financial windfall that this very rich merchant had yesterday? And did you hear how sad people were that the old farmer's cow died? Well, this was too much for Narada. This time he had to ask Krishna, Lord, how can you allow this? It seems so unfair. The wealthy man who gave us nothing gets more. And the poor old farmer who gave us everything is left with nothing. And Krishna said, well, the Lord has wise ways. He gave more wealth to that wealthy merchant, so the wealthy merchant can find ever more quickly. He can understand the suffering that attachment to worldly things bring. And the old farmer was a true lover of God, and he lost his only attachment, his cow. Hence, he is now free. Aren't we all here to become free? Not to gather things around, make ourselves comfortable, get all our little ducks in a row for 5 minutes, because in a while, one of those ducks is going to be bounced off your wall, and you're going to be very upset. A wealthy businessman lived exiled from his heart, alienated from his heart, while the old farmer gave unreservedly. He lived selflessly. He asked for nothing. He just gave himself. And this is what opens the heart. If our heart is open, then we can serve with joy. We reach out to all with this open heart. We don't only serve those that are in dire need or have less than we do. Sometimes we look at people who are surrounded in comfort and they seem so put together and they have everything. You think, what could I give them? Serve them, because you will be surprised at the sadness, at the distress, and the frustration that abides under the cloak of luxury. Great sadness, great depression, but it's covered up. We don't see it. People in tatters, you see their condition, but you don't see the condition in their heart. By keeping the heart open and available and serviceful, you will always find yourself in good space and in good standing with the ultimate truth. You know you're doing what you came into this life to do. There's another story about Mother Teresa who was speaking to the press once, and she was talking about the dire situations that she works in India, serving people who are absolutely poverty-stricken. Nobody will take them in. She picks them off the street to bring them into her ashrams, to her convents, and serve them. And on this one occasion, she said that she had heard of a very poor family that was suffering hunger. So she took some rice to this family, and they hadn't eaten in several days. The family had 8 children, and the mother was thrilled that she'd be able to feed her family that day, give them a meal. So she divided up the rice, and she disappeared for a few moments. And when she came back, Mother Teresa said, "Where did you go?" She said, "Well, my neighbor is a Muslim mother, and her children are very hungry too. So I felt they would also appreciate having a meal today." This is how the heart thrives. The heart is elevated. The heart is nourished by serving others, because we were built with that divine love in the image of the divine to do these things. And when we don't do them, we feel alienated from our hearts, and we separate ourselves from that flow of the divine energy. When it comes to exhibiting the qualities of the heart, we think people who have good hearts are soft and kind and gentle. And yes, sometimes they have to be that way. But to be able, for the heart to be able to express its full potential, more is needed. That is a very powerful heart. That can be soft and meek and mild sometimes, and other times it is enormous. And to get there, we have to practice self-discipline. We think of discipline as something with the will. And yes, we use the will to get that discipline, and it works for a while. But over time, if you're only using that will to achieve discipline, you become cold and brittle and hard, and that alienates you further from the heart. Yogananda said that we need to find the perfect balance between the purity of heart and the calm intelligence of the mind. Perfect balance. The heart always has to be on board with everything you do. If the heart is not on board, your plans will not come to be. Self-discipline not only purifies and strengthens the heart, it begets devotion. And devotion is nothing other than passion turned in and upward. Devotion is not a soft little yearning for the Lord when I'm going to take out my mala beads or my rosary or whatever it is that you pray, and I'm going to kind of sit here quietly with the Lord. Devotion is a very high energy frequency. Otherwise, when we constantly give in to our desires, we don't practice that self-discipline. We give in to our desires. We surround ourselves with comfort. We stay with what is familiar. I like to refer to this state as living in the comfort zone. Over time, we become tepid. And that joy and that devotion and that energy vanish. We need devotion and energy and joy to keep the fires of the heart burning within. This is going to get us to destination. So draw your desires back, draw those likes and dislikes, rein them in, and let go of those attachments and those aversions that keep you grounded and comfortable because it's familiar. Step out of that comfort zone and meet yourself. Our aspirations are still there, but without this power and this energy, you will not have the fuel to get to destination. We need strong life force, a powerful supply of life force. With this life force, there is nothing that you in the infinite working together cannot accomplish. This is what we obtain when we go into these teachings 100%. This is how Swami Kriyananda created Ananda. His power, his joy, his focus, his devotion were there constantly. They were the engine propelling him forward, regarding of all the trials and tribulations that beset him. He never went into a corner and sobbed and felt victimized. On the contrary, he just kept going like the locomotive. Keep going, keep going. Why? He was powered by the divine force, powered with God at his side. He accomplished what he did. He got to destination. Another beautiful beatitude that I would like to share is, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." This is another beautiful statement of grace that we are invited to aspire to. This devotee's consciousness is constantly immersed in God's peace. Nothing upsets, nothing ruffles this inner peace. A peace that is so deeply rooted in one's being that you carry it like a fragrance wherever you go. Blessing others, healing others, serving others, and inspiring others to maybe embark on their journey toward inner freedom. But our first step to get there is to make peace with our own trials and tribulations, with our own karma, with our own issues, with our own challenging people in our lives. Know that those who challenge you are your best teachers. when everybody loves you and everybody celebrates you every time they see you, yeah, we lose the edge, comfort surrounds us. Not that you shouldn't enjoy that celebratory mode. Don't get used to it. Stay sharp. So when somebody flings you some nasty comment, you know, you stand tall. You're not wounded. You're not hurt. You're not thrown off kilter. You stay on your path, on track. And that means making peace with yourself. Not easy to make peace with ourselves when we look back and we fail and we trip and we fall. Instead of beating ourselves up and holding shame and holding regret and holding anger, dust yourself off and try yet again. What did Master say? A sinner is a saint who never gave up. We become peacemakers when we seek to reconnect with that part of ourselves that remains untouched, pure, pristine, and perfect, regardless of all the mistakes we've made. Identify yourself with that aspect of your being and not with your past mistakes, with your regrets that people carry around in a sack like burdens all over the place. These teachings are invitations to experience a new reality. A reality that is just waiting to be unveiled by those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. I'd like to end this with the words of Yogananda. You are already everything you are seeking. All you need to know is to improve. All you need to do is to improve that knowing. So we need to step away from what feels familiar, step out into the unknown with courage. Take that invitation. It's leading you to your absolute joy and wholeness. Now we will have our offertory